Air superiority, something all powerful nations aspire to have. The United States, following the Vietnam War, learned this when their fat F-4s were shot down in the hundreds by the North Vietnamese. Following this, the lightweight fighter program was created, spawning the F-16. Although the F-16 was designed for air superiority, it became one of the best multi-role fighters in all of aviation history, rivaled only by a few other planes like the F-18 and the F-35. Stepping away from real life, my country, Stenmark, had been leading in aviation technology since the invention of the airplane. That was until 1982. The fighter that had carried the Stenmark Air Force for nearly 30 years was, well, outdated. Stenmark was operating second-gen fighters while fourth-gen fighters were entering service, and that had to change. To stop the socialist superpower to the south from getting too much of a technological edge, they quickly scrambled to everybody's favorite aerospace monopoly, Stenmark Aeronautics. Please, we need a fighter, please! Before we get into the engineering of this plane, let's look at the situation. The year is 1981, and the Southern Socialist Republic, or SSR, has just made the world's fastest interceptor. Stenmark's old fighter won't cut it, both in agility and speed. And Stenmark doesn't really want to fight the SSR, even though Stenmark's economy is built for war. They just can't fight an enemy several times larger and stronger than them. So what's the best thing you can do? Make an air superiority fighter to defend your airspace. To counter the SSR's interceptor, the FA-88 would have to be fast, and we're talking like Mach 2.2 without the engines exploding. MiG-25. Its range with drop tanks has to be above 1,300 nautical miles, enough to fly across just about all of Stenmark. Lastly, it has to be somewhat cheap. Spending $80 million on a fighter that can make or break your air force isn't optimal. Now, let's take a look at what Stenmark Aeronautics built. I built it. It was me. This is the FA-88 Harpy, a single-engine multi-role fighter designed to be Stenmark's primary fighter for years to come. Powered by the Brawler X88B2 engine, it makes 122 kilonewtons of thrust. And it has a neat feature that allows this plane to fly almost 400 miles per hour faster than the F-16, which I'll be talking about later. By the time the F-16 had rolled around in real life, there was some pretty advanced technology. Radar warning receivers, IRST pods, PESA radars, and high RPM Gatling guns like the M61. All of these are located in the nose of the plane. The PESA radar is small, but it still has a decent range. For a light fighter, it's plenty. 62.5 kilometers in the 80s was pretty decent. You'll also notice an intake next to the nose, but that's way too small to be the main intake. Instead, it goes to a pump, which uses the air for cooling the gun, radar, and pressurizing the cockpit. And you'll also notice that the lurks stretches just behind the canopy. This is a huge feature for the jet's performance. Looking further back at it's honestly pretty big compared to the F-16. It's 57.4 feet long compared to the F-16's 49 feet. The Harpy is also 8 feet wider. However, it's almost a full ton lighter without fuel. Stenmark has the capabilities to handle higher maintenance aircraft, so the plane isn't built quite as rugged as the F-16. Another portion of the weight savings comes from the simpler landing gear design. Instead of tucking both gears away in one large intake like the F-16, the Harpy has two intakes, each housing just one gear. Two intakes also made more sense to me for a long list of reasons. One being that the original FA-31 has two intakes, and it's supposed to be an evolution of that. So why would you change that? The gap in between them also has an area of reduced drag. You'll see this on like the F-14. It means you can carry a huge missile, drop tank, gun pod, and have no extra drag from it. The Harpy takes advantage of that by carrying an 800 kilogram drop tank for takeoff and climbing. Most importantly, I thought it looked cool. Unlike my earlier Flyout planes, I actually modeled the interior of this one. Originally, I wanted this video to be a I spent 24 hours building this plane type of video, but as you can tell, because the video is not named that, I didn't. It is a lot higher detail because of that, and I'm pretty proud of it. Internally, 3.5 tons of fuel is held, similar to the F-16. However, the Brawler X88 engine is thirsty. It devours 5 kilograms of fuel at full afterburner while static. When you get up to speed, even at altitude, it chews through 7.5 kilograms per second. Because of this, the Harpy usually carries drop tanks. However, the engines are pretty efficient with the afterburner off, so those drop tanks aren't required. Yeah, pretty much, you just want to bring as much fuel as you can so you can intercept, so you can dogfight, and a lot more than just fly in a straight line, and crash. F-104. Speaking of the F-104, my plane has... The wings on the Harpy take advantage of a few aerodynamic principles. Just like the F-16, using lurks, the plane performs excellently at high AOAs. According to my Mark 1 eyeball, the wing sweep I chose is awesome and amazing. It's right between the F-18 and the F-16. I chose a 35-degree sweep. It's good at low speed, and while it's slightly worse than the F-16 at high speed, I think the low speed handling is worth it. At low speeds, most aircraft don't turn as fast as they do at high speeds. And if you go really slow, you'll stall. When you stall, you want it to be a root stall, as they are far more predictable and safer. To ensure that a root stall happens, I added wing fences. Wing fences redirect airflow to stop tip stalls from happening. And speaking of stalls, instead of catastrophically falling out of the sky and spinning 1,000 degrees per second, it just loses altitude. And it only happens at absurdly low speeds, like at 140 knots, with missiles and a full tank of gas. With just fuel, so like its clean airframe, it can stay in control at just 130 knots. With maneuver mode on, the plane can sustain a 21 degree per second turn rate at a much lower speed than the F-16. With it off, the plane is designed to be able to sustain a turn while accelerating, up to about Mach 1. By optimizing for lower speeds, you have a much tighter turning circle, meaning you're much better in a one-circle fight, and by maintaining the 21 degrees per second, you're still good in a two-circle fight. When I was recording footage for this thing, I was surprised by the stall recovery. Just watch this maneuver. And before you say, but it stalled! It's stalling and you said it wouldn't! I was operating it way out of what it was built for. It was clean, in maneuver mode, and almost 150 miles per hour faster than it should have been. Remember the secret feature I talked about earlier? This is where it comes in. The F-16, when approaching its top speed, has to fight the air going into the engine, which is really bad. It's like sprinting with duct tape covering your mouth and a parachute deployed on your back. You got the highest drag and normally the lowest thrust. The Harpy's Brawler X-88 engines are more akin to the SR-71s. At lower, supersonic and subsonic speeds, the engine core can take in all the air without any issues. The keyword being lower supersonics. As you get faster, the air going into the engine is faster, and if the air going into the compressor is supersonic, the engine has a panic attack and dies. The Harpy's intake geometry slows some of this air down, feeding it to the main compressor. The rest is bypass air and receives extra thrust from ram air effect. When you're going super fast, air pressure increases. When this higher pressure air escapes out the back, it creates thrust, and even more when it's propelled by the main engine's thrust. Basically, the entire engine makes thrust instead of just the engine core. This engine is the one that I use on most Stenmark fighters, so expect to see it again in the future. I'll keep this one short as I know you want to see the cinematic. So, it carries 7 hardpoints, 1 centerline, 2 wingtip, and 4 under the wings. Future variants would be able to carry more, however, I wanted to keep the Block 1 variant limited. In a normal combat loadout, the centerline hardpoint would carry 1 drop tank, the wings would carry 1 AGM each, and 1 air-to-air missile on each wingtip. In a long-range loadout, 1 more drop tank is added on each wing, and that's about it. Now, let's see if it hit all the requirements in the cinematic.
Attention 82nd, we are tracking a bogey bearing 012. Wolf 1-1, you're being scrambled. If it's an SSR interceptor, you're free to engage.
Copy that. I'll catch him shortly. I have a lock on it. Am I clear to engage?
Confirmed, you're clear to engage.
Fox 2. Splash 1. Defeated. I'm re-engaging.
The missile.
Splash 2. Returning to base. YouTube thinks you should totally watch this next video, and I do too, and it's totally not because I want money. Yeah, watch my next video. You better. I'll know.